You're listening to a podcast from the Finnish Football Show.
Yes, this is the Finnish Football Show. I'm Mark Wiltshire, and for this episode, joined by Rich Nelson. Hi, Rich.
Hello.
And we got a jam-packed show. This was supposed to be a Helmarit match report episode, and it will be that. But we've got a long list of other bits and pieces that you've found for us today, Rich. So we'll be looking through some of those things, such as Veikkausliiga updates regarding Honka and more management changes since the last episode, and we'll also look at Liigacup draw for next season, HJK in Europe, and a few bits and pieces for the men's national team as well. So I think we better get cracking straight away, Rich, if you're ready.
Yeah, go on. We've got a lot to cover today.
We certainly have. And let's start with the two final Nations League games for the women's national team, the Helmarit. And it started with a resounding victory, Finland 6, Romania 0. And I'm the one that watched these games, so I'm going to be doing the heavy lifting in the first half of the show, and Rich is going to take over in the second half of the show, and I can put my feet up and ask annoying questions that you won't be expecting. This first game was probably as one-sided as everyone expected, although I'm not sure any of us predicted 6-0 in the preview show, but it started pretty much from the very beginning. First minute, and Romania were attacking. Finland sort of won it on the edge of their box, broke away really quickly, and eventually the ball was played over the top for Jutta Rantala, I think, and she had a shot that cannoned off the crossbar. It sent snow flying everywhere. It was very dramatic looking. If the ball had gone in, it would have been a beauty. But it kind of set the tone for the first 20 minutes or so, where Finland had lots of the ball. They created quite a lot of chances, but just couldn't quite put it away. And it was a combination of sort of defending from Romania and a bit of wasteful finishing, really, from the Finland team. And it was on the 27th minute where I guess things really turned against Romania, where they got a red card. And it was completely fair. Red card, ball was played over the top. I think it was Linda Sällström that was broken through, and the defender kind of came behind her and just clipped her ankles, sent her flying. But she was pretty much the last defender, and Finland would have had a sort of clear attack on goal. So the old red card was brandished, and from there on in, it was sort of downhill for Romania. On the 30th minute, and one person that really caught my eye, particularly while I was watching the highlights today, was Orna Siren, who was she was winning the ball, and she was winning the ball quite high up, sort of just behind that forward line, and not letting Romania get out with the ball, and then sort of starting those attacks really high up the pitch. And she did this in the 30th minute. She played the ball out wide to Emma Koivisto, who crossed it along the deck, and there was Sällström just in front of the goal to flick it up over the goalkeeper. It was a nice finish. It was all sort of one touch, and just flicked it over the keeper into the net. And then 6 minutes later, 36 minutes, she kind of repaid the favour. This time the ball was played to her towards the edge of the box, and she played it first time into the danger zone, right in front of the goal. And this time it was Ria Erling that came in and poked the ball under the keeper. And I think if that wasn't enough, then Sällström got her second goal on 41 minutes. A really nice finish. The ball played through to her by Orna Siren again, and it was this lovely sort of lofted high chipped shot over the top of the keeper. Really, really nice goal. I mean, she's a really top goal scorer for the Finland women's team, and Finland went in 3-0 up, a one woman advantage, and Linda Sällström had two more in her pocket. And let's be fair, the game was pretty much over by then. Looking at the highlights and looking at the stats again, what's interesting is that there were like a few players that scored a goal and had an assist. So everybody, even the sort of the wide defenders, because Emma Koivisto was among them, scoring and creating goals, and a real kind of team effort.
It's one of those cliches, isn't it? Everyone was getting in on the act against a 10 person Romania. It was nice to see. Obviously, Sällström got two, but yeah, definitely a bit of a sharing out, and I guess 3-0 in each half was nice for fans of symmetry.
Yeah, that's true. The fourth goal was from Emma Koivisto on the 72nd minute across. Well, as a shot actually came in from the left-hand side of the box, maybe from Jutta Rantala, and the goalkeeper sort of pushed it out, and Koivisto came in at the back post to slide in and put it home. Orna Sevenius got her first goal, I think, for the national team in 84 minutes. This was a ball played through the defence on the deck by Ria Erling, and Sevenius drove it home. It was a drive. She drove it home under the goalkeeper to make it 5, and it was that woman again, Orna Siren, who set up the final goal, playing the ball through to Anni Hartikainen on the left-hand side of the box, and she sort of fired it high, hard over the keeper. I think the keeper got fingertips to it. Possibly a taller keeper would have got more of a hand, and she'll probably be disappointed not to keep it out. But it was in. Hartikainen had another shot with an acrobatic kind of bicycle kick right at the end, and to be honest, Finland hit the bar and posts 2 or 3 times during the game, so it could easily have got up into double figures. But it finished Finland 6, Romania 0.
Yeah, and at that point, Finland played 5, won 5, hadn't conceded a goal yet. So that had sealed promotion to League A. We'll talk about that shortly. One thing I will mention, and I shouldn't dwell too much, but Anni Hartikainen that you mentioned there.
Go on.
The day after this was the Captain's Ball Award, which is the Finnish Football Association kind of gala for the year, and handing out awards. And she won the Kansallinen Liiga Player of the Year. So she plays for Cups, and she has such a good evening out at the event that she overslept and missed the flight to Slovakia for the following match. And
you say overslept, I was thinking over celebrated,
but bit of column A, bit of column B, But yeah, we it's a shame because obviously coming on and scoring, I think that was her first Finland goal, the 6th there, and very much being made an example of. I know there was some criticism about would this have been the same for the men's team. I don't know.
There was a bit of criticism beforehand, actually, wasn't there? That why was this gala event being held in between 2 Helmarit games? And I think it was sort of a scheduling thing, and that's what it was put down to. Like when would be a better time to do it? And they pulled the game forward. It was supposed to be played, that Romania game, on the Friday, and they pulled it forward a day earlier, so at least the players could go to the game. But it's tough. She's a young player who hopefully that's her punishment. She missed the next game and she'll be back in the squad, because she has been terrific the last few games.
Yeah, and I mean, Player of the Year, she won the double with Cups this season and breaking into the Finland squad. And we've seen over the last year or so since Marco Salaranta took over as coach, he knows these players from the age group teams and has been introducing them in, whereas under the old regime, we did talk about very much a closed shop. So I think she's a poster girl for that kind of progression. So I think hopefully, as you say, she's had a very public telling off. She's been removed from the squad, and let's be honest, she may well have started that last game, and maybe she'll think twice next time, and maybe others will too. But again, going into that game away, 5 wins out of 5. It's not a bad place to be, really, in the top of League B.
No, absolutely not. And the game against Slovakia, I mean, I hadn't appreciated quite when the game kicked off that Slovakia had managed to lose to Croatia the Friday before, and it put Slovakia in a lot of trouble in the league table, or in the group table, sorry. And they really needed to beat Finland. And I thought we were going into a game where Finland had won, Slovakia was safe in second, and I just hadn't quite clocked it. And I think that desire they had, that real need to pick up the 3 points, was evident in the game. It was a very different game. It was also a very different Finland team. I mean, I think it wouldn't be necessarily fair to say a weaker team, because you look at the side and they're all players that have been playing lately, not all necessarily starting, but there weren't any sort of, it wasn't like a young team or an inexperienced team, and Slovakia were a lot more competitive. The reverse fixture in played at home in Finland finished Finland 4, Slovakia 0. So I think we were going into this quite confident that we'd get the win. We, as in the Finnish Football Show, was going into it quite confident we'd get the win, and it was a much tighter game. I mean, Finland took the lead in the second minute with a goal from Elli Pikkujämsä. Again, ball played through the defence, and she came in down the left hand side and tucked the ball away and gave Finland the dream start. But while I was watching the game, I was thinking, I don't know, it didn't feel like there was much going on. I mean, and when you look at the highlights, there are big gaps between the highlights that they showed after that second minute opener. I think the next highlight they showed was in the 14th minute, and that's kind of how it felt a little bit. What I would say again is the highlights showed a lot more from Finland than from Slovakia, and I think they're generally fairly even-handed. So if there are chances for the opposition, we get to see those chances, and there's no limit. It's not like you've got 5 minutes to squeeze in what you can. The Romania highlights were 14 minutes. I think one of the Croatia games had 5 minutes. So they clearly put a bit of effort into these, and just didn't have so much to show. The other thing I would say in this game is that Tinni Korpela in goal for Finland pulled off 2 or 3 really, really good saves, really important saves, but very, very good saves. One before the Slovakia equaliser, where the ball was sort of just not cleared a couple of times, and a sort of shot was sort of headed at her from close range, and she got down and flicked it away and clear it, well out of the box with her save. But again, it was that kind of defensive indecisiveness that kind of led to the equalising goal. The ball wasn't cleared a couple of times, and it landed at the feet of one of the Croatia forward, Lemisova, who from about a third of the way into the box drove it low into the bottom left-hand corner. Korpela dived, couldn't quite get to it. I don't know if she was unsighted. It didn't seem to be so far away from her, but she didn't get to it, and that was 1-1, and that was the halftime score. In the second half, Slovakia then went 2-1 up, and this was another one where it wasn't quite clear. The forward was breaking through in the middle of the goal, rode past a couple of challenges, and then hurled it left foot in, past Tini Korpila's right hand into the bottom corner, and it was a lovely strike. But I just felt like both goals could have been defended better. Yeah, and then the final goal, the ball was played out wide on Finland's left, cut in on the edge of the box, played back to Jutta Rantala, and she hit this long, high shot that floated over the top of the goalkeeper into the far right-hand top corner of the goal, and that was basically the end of the goal scoring action. And there was still time for Tini Korpila to put off one more amazing save. It was almost like a carbon copy of Finland's second goal, and the ball was going high into the top corner, and she managed to get right up there full stretch and tip it over to save the point for Finland. And we were saying before that Slovakia really needed that win. Only getting a draw basically condemned them to third place in the group, and somehow Croatia got through. I mean, I thought Croatia were weak in this group, but they managed to get a couple of results in the last few games, or last two games, and squeaked through. They beat Romania 1-0, they beat Slovakia 2-0, and that was 6 of their 9 points right at the end.
That's tournament football for you. As we saw the men's national team, they lose 3 in a row in Euro qualifying, and that was then done. So it's amazing what a little bit of run of form or otherwise can do for you.
And I think, Rich, we'll just have a little bit of admin, because although Eli Pikujamsa was credited with the first goal in that Slovakia game, it was actually Alanen that scored it. So let's give credit where it's due. My app that I'm looking at in front of me has got some wrong data, so I'm taking none of the blame.
That's how we work.
It's quite right. So, as you said, that left Finland at the top of the table with 16 points from 6 games. Second place, Croatia, with 9 points. So as we just said, 6 in their last 2 games and 9 points. And Slovakia, 1 from their last 2 games, end up on 8 points and not qualifying. Rich, do you know how the final positions here feed into the next Nations League, and also into Euro qualifying?
So the next tournament is Euro 2025 qualifying, which is entirely formed as a Nations League tournament, because Finland have now been promoted to League A from winning that group. So how it works is the top 2 teams in each group qualify straight for the next Euros, which is in Switzerland in about 18 months' time. The teams that finish 3rd and 4th in that group will play a playoff they'll be drawn against the winners and 3rd best runners up from League C.
Okay.
So Finland, or at least, will be guaranteed at least that.
Some sort of playoff.
Yeah, so there's a playoff there, and there's also a playoff between teams who do well in League B. So, and then there's like a final tournament. So the only way to guarantee qualifying is to finish in the top 2. Looking at the teams who will be in League A for the next round, it's going to be quite a challenge. I think Finland.
I think so.
Yeah, so you're looking at, the teams who won their groups: France, Germany, Netherlands, Spain, Austria, Denmark, England, Italy. So England will be playing one of each of these groups, I think. Then promoted with Finland were Czechia, Poland, and Republic of Ireland, and then there'll be playoffs for the other places. So that's where Croatia managed to. Their point actually gives them a chance of playing in League A next time round, amazingly.
But after this Nations League, the obviously we have the kind of, there's teams that qualify for the Olympics, and there's also a final competition of this Nations League, and then the countries are given their new positions based on promotion and relegation, and that then forms the levels or the leagues for the Euro qualifying.
Yes.
after, and you've just explained how that Euro qualifying works, but the next Nations League after that, are those positions still based on this Nations League?
No. So this doubles as a Nations League tournament and a Euro qualifying tournament.
Is that right? So the promotion and relegation also happens at the end of that,
according to this website.
Right, okay, I believe you. It's all
promotion.
New,
yep. Promotion and relegation will also be at stake ahead of the following Nations League tournament. The winners, runners up, and third place will stay in League A, and the other teams will be relegated.
Yeah. Okay. I like the. I think the Euro competition kind of mirror the Nations League will make it easier for us all to follow what's going on in the longer term.
I wonder if this will feed into. I mean, again, they tend to experiment with the women's game more, and I guess I wonder if that might turn into a men's thing at some point, because you kind of imagine that, here in qualifying, you're going to have teams of similar levels playing each other to qualify for these tournaments.
Oh, yeah,
whereas,
that's true.
Whereas you think, like in the men's, obviously you have the argument that Malta shouldn't be there, Gibraltar shouldn't be there. Whereas obviously the Nations League is generally more closely matched. So
and therefore the seeding is the fact that the top two teams in each League A group go straight through, and then the next two get a playoff, and there are fewer and fewer playoff positions with the teams lower and lower down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
So the draw for this will be in early March 2024, and the games will be starting in early April. So not long at all. Before the Olympics have started, before the finals, they go straight into this.
Yes, and listener, I've got all the kind of graphics and links and everything in the blog post to accompany this. So wherever you're watching or listening, just have a look down below and you'll see the link right at the top of the description there, because I want to make it as easy as possible for you. There's also links to the highlights from the Pallolito, and I mean there's so much there. Just listen to this and then get into the blog post, or if as we go through the news, you'll find a link for each article in there as well. But I think, Rich, it's half time. Let's crack on with the news section, and we've got many different stories to cover here. I thought, as we've been talking about international football, maybe the first thing for the men's national team, the Huuhkajat, is the Euro 2024 playoff games, or game really, which is taking place Thursday, 21st of March. Wales away to Finland. Have you got your ticket?
No, I haven't yet. I'm relying on Keke to sort that out. It's actually Finland are away to Wales. So
yes,
so I'm waiting for Keke to sort that out for me. But yeah, what's happening there is obviously the winner of that game will be at home to the winner of the Poland-Estonia match. So in an ideal world, Finland would go through and then they'd host. But what Pallolito have done to kind of protect themselves a little bit and not to have 5 days notice to warm up for a game is they've also said if they do lose to Wales, then they'll still host another game on that day, and it'll be against the loser of Poland and Estonia. So it's going to be tricky. I'm not sure how they're going to do that.
Tough sell, isn't it? It could be Poland in a final versus Estonia in a friendly.
Yeah, so they're going to be waking up on that Friday morning after the Wales game going, I hope we're not getting 20,000 returns.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
I mean, it costs a lot of money to sort. I think they're planning. I think it's 95% certain they'll play at the Olympia Stadion, but I mean that's going to cost them several €100,000 just to get it ready. So it's. I mean the benefits of qualifying will sort it out, but if they don't, yes, as you say, it could well be a glamour friendly against Estonia in March. So.
Okay, that's good to know. And Estonia is interesting, isn't it? Because they're in the sort of the League C of the Nations League, And how did they get into these qualifiers?
I think kind of by default. I think they kind of just because they get a playoff somewhere, and the vacancy was in that division. and they just kind of got thrown in, and it was kind of like, I mean, it's not great for them because I mean they're going to be away to Poland and away to Wales or Finland.
Yeah,
so,
it's a tough run, but
yeah,
hey, they've got a chance.
It's a treat
Yeah.
for it's a day out. But then before this, we've got the draw for the next Men's Nation League.
Yes,
which takes place on the 8th of February. Finland will be in League B again after they came second in the last campaign, but they're going to have some interesting opponents joining them now.
Who's come up and come down that's caught your eye?
Well, coming up from League C is our old friends Kazakhstan, but coming down from League A is more interesting. You have Austria, who are actually quite good at the moment, Czechia, Wales, and England.
England come down, do they? I see. I haven't paid close enough attention to what England have been doing. I didn't realise they got relegated. They came bottom of their group.
They did. So Finland will be in pot 2 for that draw, and they will play one of those teams. Will be in pot 1. So,
well, obviously, the Finnish Football Show would be delighted if England were in the group.
Yeah,
I mean, why not?
We've talked about it before. I think Finland haven't played England since 2001.
Was that the Beckham game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where Littmanen broke his arm when he was playing for Liverpool at the time. The game was at Liverpool. I think Finland were winning. I think Riolatti scored first, and England came back to win. But yeah, that'd be a nice treat.
Yeah, it would.
So the draw for that's in February, and the games kick off in the autumn, and that will then feed into qualifying potentially for the next World Cup.
Yes. Okay. Very, very good. Okay. We've mentioned the captain's ball with regards to Anni Hartikainen. Any other notable prize winners there that you want to just mention?
I suppose the standout ones in terms of the names that people recognise. The Finland Men's Player of the Year was Lukas Radetski. Female Player of the Year was Natalie Koika. The Under-21 Player of the Year was Otso Limata after his outstanding year, now playing in Portugal. I suppose a couple of the others that like through the Veikkausliiga, you had the Coach of the Year, Jussi Norrala from VPS. And sort of going through, they have awards for all different levels of the game. Again, this is the Rookie of the Year. Someone we've talked about a fair bit was Topi Keskinen, the left winger of HJK. And the Veikkausliiga Player of the Year was Peter Michael, the couldn't stop scoring.
No, that's true. And I saw that Marley Gunningas was Bojan Radulovic, which is fair, but Peter Michael ran him pretty close in the second half of the season. So it's good to see them both get their names on the list there.
But yeah, there's a lot of grassroots kind of players. Harry Ahola won the Football Reporter of the Year. He runs for Turun Sanomat. Thomas Galvez, New Finland left back, promising young men's player of the year as well. Yes. Boys under 21s.
I think I also saw that. Yeah, so you mentioned that Anni Hartikainen got the Player of the Year for the Kansallinliiga, but Lotta Lindström got the Maali Kuningatar, the goal queen, not the goal king, and she's just started to break into the national team in recent games as well. So it's interesting to see these names pop up in different places and getting that kind of recognition.
Yeah.
There was one. Here we go. There was one SJK player in there, so I have to give a shout out to Murillo SJK for the I guess the assistant of the year. I guess setting up the most goals in the Veikkausliiga. So we'll take every small possible trophy.
It's a
and
trophy.
Medal.
It's a trophy.
It's what we got. All right. Okay, on from the captains, but again, all the links are in the blog post there. So I think we talked maybe in the last show about the situation you talked about Honka being in trouble, and you talked about other clubs with financial sort of challenges. But maybe give the listener an update on what actually happened with Honka and their Veikkausliiga place.
So essentially, Honka's owning company, Esport, basically pulled all funding from the club or from the men's first team, and the men's team have basically they've kind of done what they did before when this happened in 2014. Was they basically reformed into themselves, and they've basically they've relinquished their place in the Veikkausliiga and have reformed using their academy side, who play in Kakkonen. Which is now not the third tier, but now the fourth tier of Finnish football. But as such, so the Honka team who came third in 2022 and had a decent, playing the cup final this year, they're now no longer owned by the company that owned them and have basically been reabsorbed back into their old kind of community side of things. It's all very strange, but I say they got to the end of the year and players hadn't been paid, and I think they got into that Euro playoff final. The players hadn't been paid. The captain Henry Alto was very, very vocal about it. Basically, we've not been paid. What's going on? No one tells us anything, and they're hearing everything in the newspapers. Of course, then within a week, I think the club had essentially folded.
It's strange, as you say, but it's also really sad as well. I mean, it's
terrible.
sad for the players, for the fans, the fact that it's happened twice in the space of 10 years.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, they made nearly €1 million last year off the sale of two players. So they saw Rui Modesta to AIK and Agon Sadiku as well left. So they made best part of €1 million. They were complaining that the cost of travelling to their Conference League qualifier cost, they were out of pocket because of that. Generally just terribly run. And I think at one point the former owner said, well, I don't know what the players are complaining about. They will get paid anyway by essentially welfare, or their salaries are protected by the salary security system. So
that may well be true, but that is nowhere near the point, mate.
Yes, and the fact is that he didn't pay them, and they have to wait 3 or 4 months. There were players. I think it was Clesio Bauk from Mozambique. He was off on international duty. His family were in Espoo and basically stranded because contractually the club were meant to pay for them to return to their own country, and they were left stranded in Finland because the club basically went, right, we're not honouring your contract now. So it's terrible. And what happens with these situations is the players start getting cherry picked. I mean, obviously, SJK have done quite well out of it. But
I was going to say, SJK seem to have the tallest cherry picker so far.
Exactly, yeah. But the coach Vassara has gone to Inter, replacing Mr. Gropey, Jarkovic, allegedly. So he's gone to Inter now. He took over today, actually, the time of recording. That was his first day in a job. And yes, SJK have picked off 3 of the most promising youngsters. So they've done very well.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a couple of people say that these are really good acquisitions. I don't know these players from reputation, but Roope Paunio, Dario Naamo, and Lauri Laine.
Linus, I saw Line at the start of last season at Cups. He was excellent, really good. And I think Namo he had a bit of a cameo in that kind of last run of games. He scored a very nice goal in one of them. He looked really promising. I don't know a lot about Paunio, but 3 very good young players and going to SJK probably get quite a few minutes.
Well, we do like a young player. We'll come on to that in a moment. Well, the other part of that story, Rich, was that Gnistan are coming up.
That's the plan.
Okay.
So Veikkausliiga have essentially a pecking order of who would be first dibs on a place if a club don't get a license to play. So Gnistan, as the runners-up in the promotion playoff, they get first dibs. They've applied for a license. I think they I'm assuming they got a nudge at some point that Honka were unlikely to fulfill their place. So they've put in a license application. That might not, I'd be surprised if that comes out before Christmas. But yes, they will probably, if they can fulfill that, take the place and play in Veikkausliiga next year. And they've been busy recruiting as well.
They have. There's a very useful blog post on the Veikkausliiga website that Rich sends to the rest of us every year and tells us to bookmark this page. It lists all of the transfers for each club, ins and outs. Now, what I would say is Gnistan are on that list. So there's a hint that they might be expecting to be in the Veikkausliiga next year.
Well, that's the plan, and I think assuming that they meet the Paloliito's regulations, they will. They're also, we can talk about this shortly. They're also in the Liigacup. So yes, Gnistan have signed Jukka Raitala from HJK today. He was released. It's difficult because it's not come out very well for HJK. He's played many games from over the last 2 years since he's come back to Finland. And from the article I read in Helsinki Sanomat today, he was basically told by Aki Riolahti, "You're not welcome here. You can go." You know, for someone who's played a lot and done generally very well for HJK over the last 2 years, this leaves a bit of a sour taste. And needless to say, he's been left out of the squad for HJK's final European game this season for personal reasons.
That's a bit tight. Come on, give him a goodbye.
Yes,
give him a day trip over somewhere warmer. Anyway.
Nice trip to Greece.
There you go.
But Gnistan have got Jussi Lepelahti as their coach. He was the manager of KTP for most of last season before he was sacked. He replaces Jonas Rantanen, who was the coach, who's now the manager of Ilves.
Yes. Okay. Like that merry-go-round. I think we played the music last time. We'll lay off this time.
Am I Dougal or Zebedee? I can't remember.
You can choose. Yes, you mentioned Liigacup. So the draw for the Liigacup has been made, and it's the same format as last year for this competition.
So essentially it's geographically kind of regional side. You've got the teams in the south, being Group A, Ekinas, Inter, Gnistan, HJK, Mariehamn and Lahti. And Group B are the more northern sides, or north and west, of Oulu, Haka, Ilves, KuPS, SJK and VPS. I think it was the top two from each group going to the semi-finals, I believe. But the games start in January. I think the fixtures will be out soon, but they start in January, and this is where we start seeing they have different regulations, so they're not formal games. So you get trialists and people turning up who no one's ever heard of and probably never hear of again, score a couple of goals, and most of the games will be played indoors as well.
Where if you're lucky to get in, or lucky, it's not so difficult to get in, but if you decide to go along, you might get a view standing next to the commentator, with a view over the linesman's shoulder. It's quite surreal. It's not my favourite way to watch football.
But at least at SJK, then Wolfsport, then they have the sort of mezzanine area, so at least you get some elevation on an exercise bike.
So this is there is a mezzanine up there, which is sort of part of the Wolfsport gym, but you're behind a mesh, obviously like a net to stop the ball coming up there. And yes, often fans are sitting on exercise bikes watching the game. It's like I say, it's a bit surreal, really, and you've got not the best view. It's not bad, but it's not the best view of a game.
It's strange. I mean, we went in there that time we met Simo, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a weird kind of, and that was just to pop in. I mean, I can't imagine watching a game in but essentially a municipal leisure centre.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, a municipal leisure centre owned by the club, so they have first dibs, and it's a good. I guess, like a lot of clubs, having that resource to bring in the revenue is a good thing. But I just don't. I don't know. You're indoors, but you're cold for starters, and I don't know. You don't get much of a view of the game, and then when you watch them on TV, the cameras aren't much higher or further back than your nose anyway. So it's not the best. It's not the best. And I
it's glorified pre-season.
Yeah, I think so. But it is competitive, and it gives some build up to the season. And I think if they play it says tentatively January, but it's generally like February, March, and then a couple of weeks break, and then the season starts again in April.
Yeah, so I think you might get the odd one in January, but I mean the clubs are back. Most of them are coming back into pre-season now. this week. Actually, I think a few have started, whereas HJK is still playing from last year. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. That actually today, like they're still playing and they're going to have their winter holiday starting kind of now, whereas the other clubs have had theirs and are now coming back to the to the training, which is somehow that also seems really early. Like it's a month off. I suppose they have about 4 or 5 weeks off, come back and train for a few weeks, then have a little bit of a Christmas holiday, and then back in first or second week of January, and away you go through the rest of the year. Okay, well, the next thing is that I think last time we spoke, it was announced that Joaquin Gomez had left SJK, and it was being speculated upon who would be coming in to be the next manager. And I heard people around here saying, "Oh, it's definitely going to be Simo, or it's going to be Toni Korkeakunnas," and all these people who definitely knew who it was going to be. Then there was a story about 10 days ago in the local paper saying SJK are going to give the job to last year's academy manager, Stevie Grieve. But how can this be? He doesn't have his license, and SJK are going to break all the rules. And there was a bit of a storm of noise online and in the papers. Around this time, also, it was announced that Toni Lehtinen was leaving HJK Jyväskylä as head coach and moving to a Veikkausliiga team that was unnamed at that time. It was then announced on Monday, the 4th of December, that the two of them are both going to be running the first team together. I'm not sure exactly of the technicalities of that, but I know the rules are that to be first team coach or head coach, you have to have your FIFA Pro license or be studying for it. And I think Toni Lehtinen is studying for it, but the club said that they will do everything to help Stevie to do that. So I guess as long as he starts studying, gets his backpack and pencil case out and sort of starts studying, then it's okay anyway. So I did send him a message around the time that story broke in the local newspaper, because he was talking last year about, we want to create chaos and get the team promoted to the Veikkausliiga. And it had been quiet for a month or so, and I sent him a message and said, I guess you're back in town because the chaos has started again. And I just got a kind of face palm emoji come back to me, like, oh, I haven't even started yet, kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. The club are back in today. And I think the SJK fans are feeling really positive about this. The academy, I watched them a bit last year. As the club has talked about a lot, SJK had the youngest Veikkausliiga team and the youngest Ukkonen team last year, average age. And when you're that young, under 21 years old, anyway, the academy team on average, there's going to be inconsistency there, but they were considered to be exciting. And Stevie's told me that that's his kind of, that's his ethos of playing football. He wants to be more exciting and more attacking, or his ethos is more exciting and more attacking than maybe we've had the last couple of years. And there was a really interesting article. I sent it to you guys over the weekend. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. It was quite long and tactical about how SJK Academy lined up last year, 3 different potential formations depending on who they're playing against, and how that formation changed in attack, and how the players moved around into different positions depending on whether they were attacking or defending. And I've had a couple of people say to me, like, wow, this sounds exciting. Like, I watched the academy last year, they were good to watch, and if we can get some of that in the first team, I'm up for this. And to go from very flat from July onwards last season to already starting to think next season might be positive, it shows you the madness of being a football fan, really.
Absolutely. I think what was going on with SJK was, I think that first half of the season, people were so excited to see this team, because that's because aspirations weren't title at all, really, were they? And I think, at one point, I think they could have gone 6 clear if they'd beaten HJK in that game. And obviously after that, that was kind of when the massive rut started. And I think everything looked like, and I'm an Arsenal fan, and it looks like, using another Spaniard, it was like SJK started playing with the handbrake on. And everything was like that. And when you see Stevie came into the academy around that time, and obviously I only ever saw the highlights of their games, but they looked like mad. They looked like, and I say chaos, but obviously, I mean, I'm sure Stevie will say it was controlled chaos and everything was, I mean, you can't plan for a lot of these things, but at least preparing and unpreparing the opposition, things like that. And I think how that's going to work in Veikkausliiga will be interesting because, again, I think Cups are the only team in the top 6 who haven't changed their manager. So again, and then even below that, I think you've probably got 4, possibly 5 of the other 6 will have a new coach as well. So really, it's going to be, actually, no, tell you what, VPS didn't change, but even so, you've got.
I should think not. I mean, after the season they had.
Yeah. But yeah, you've got a lot of people are going to be coming in new, and if that kind of play comes in, because I'm not saying football's not about entertaining the masses. I'm sure the coaches will say it's about winning games, but if you can do both, it's nice that finally a manager with the name Stevie G might actually live up to something. But it's interesting to see, and I'll give it a little shout out as well because Ash Civil, who's an English coach who did really well with TPV last year, is now, I can't remember the exact job title, is something to do about working with the young players from their move from the into the academia side. From
is it talent, something to do with talent development,
talent coaching, talent spot, but also, and I think the other kind of bullet point was assisting players moving from the junior club team into the academia side. So there's an element of that, and you kind of look at what Richie Dorman's doing as the sporting director there. I mean, there's a very Anglo element to what's going on there now, but you kind of think he's bringing people in and looking at a conveyor belt of players going up and up and up and up, and I think we've joked many times about it, but I think it's interesting, and it'll be fun to see what happens, because I think SJK last year would have been, that first couple of months, it did give the top of the table some flavour. And I think some of the things that do it, but then you also see that players like Terry Egby are already moving on, and his long throws.
I think that I think we would have liked to kept him a bit longer, but I have no one official, no one from the club has said anything about this, but I think there's been speculation on social media that it may be sort of 600, 700,000. Now there will be a sell-on fee going back to his previous club in Ghana. But still, that's a lump of money for SJK. And of course, you hope that there's a sell-on fee in the other direction, so that if he can develop. Bearing in mind, he played for us for about a year, and he's young. He'd only started having like proper football training 4 years ago. Like, it's mad how raw he was. But so much potential there. And, I think the fans are disappointed to see him go. When the fans had their end of season vote for player of the year, like it was won ultimately quite clearly by Ville Tikkanen. But Jegbe was on that shortlist for sure. So he definitely made an impact this year. But that's what the club has to do. The club has to, not only for a financial point of view, but also it needs to get a reputation as a selling club.
And I think to fund the academy, to fund the stadium, and that's part of it. Clubs have to be, we talked about it with Cups and the previous part, I think, where Cups owner has started saying, I have to tighten the purse strings. It's not just a post-COVID thing, but it's just the modern world now. You can't lose that much money. And I think the fact that they're bringing in, these young players from Honka, 2 of them will be certainly looking at starting. In that, they've also signed Rasmus Karjalainen, who did really well for Oulu last season. I thought after he came back from Holland, I think it was after being injured for quite a while, and he's an experienced player. So I think if they can get that blend right, and I think what happened last year was perhaps the blend became too stark. But I think get a good first choice goalkeeper in there. And
I think that's the one that people are a bit curious about at the moment. Like, who might that be? Because we've signed, I would say we've signed 2 or 3 young goalkeepers in the last half a year, and I think everyone would like to see like someone with a little bit of experience, a little bit of pedigree behind them.
When you think about the one who did well last year was the Arsenal loanee,
who was 19 himself. Yeah, that's right. So it's not necessarily about age, but if you're a young boy at Arsenal, you're clearly very good. So that's
talented at least. Yeah. And that Chris, the Latvian goalie, just vanished without a trace. I think
Yes, he did. Seemed like a nice guy. Didn't really. He seemed short of confidence, and I think once a couple of things went against, you could see, and we certainly were short of confidence with him.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to see how Grieve and Lehtinen kind of, I don't know, they've got players who have been trained a certain way for the last 2 years, and now they've got to learn their way. So that will be interesting to see how the first team can cope with that. Clearly, the players that were playing for them last year will have a bit more of an idea. So I don't know. You know how the club is kind of a big pool of players that can move up and down between the different teams. So that will be something to see how that works out.
I think across the league, you're looking at some of the players. I mean, Ilves should be better than last year. They've signed Vupariski from HJK, Vetele from Kups. So they should improve. New manager as well. Kups have lost a lot of players from last year and haven't brought many in yet. I guess HJK, who knows really? I mean, they've not made any new signings, but I think they always do. It'd be interesting to see where things are at that sort of top end of the table. Because and I also give a shout out because it made me laugh. Was that an Inter player left? Rodrigo Arcerio has signed for Deportivo Moron in Argentina. That did make me chuckle because I have the sense of humour of a 12-year-old. But they've also signed Albin Granlund, who's a perennial favourite of this podcast.
Yes, indeed. Okay. So I will put links to also that analysis article that I mentioned about SJK Academia for the past season. If anyone wants to have a look at that, it's long, but there are lots of pictures and photos, and it's worth taking a little bit of time and reading through it. It's given me something to think about when watching the team next season, that's for sure. And good luck to Stevie and Tony for the upcoming season from 1/5 of the Finnish football show anyway. And also on that same transfer listings, it's also got about the managers as well. So you want to see what managers are coming in and out. That's on that same Veikkausliiga transfers page. I think, Rich, there's only one other thing that I wanted to mention, which is HJK in the Europa Conference, unless there's anything else any breaking news that's come up.
No, not in the last. I haven't really looked in the last hour, but yeah.
That was Hayton's party trick anyway.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. So HJK Helsinki, they've got their final. You mentioned it just now about the final game away in Greece. So they're playing at PAOK on Thursday, the 14th of December. It's been we've heard from Ali, who's been following the team closely, obviously being down in Helsinki and living in HJK's backyard as he now is. PAOK are top with 13 points out of 5 games, 4 wins and a draw. HJK are bottom with 2 points out of 5 games. That's 2 draws and 3 defeats. How do you see? It's a soft one for you, Rich. How do you see this game going?
Let me think. PAOK are the surprise package of the group. I don't think many people would have saw them winning it. apparently comfortably as they have. I think for HJK it's been difficult. I mean, they got an absolute schooling in Frankfurt, and I think again off the pitch this is great for them. They're earning a lot of money. I think on the pitch, they've not really. I mean, they've been competitive against Aberdeen, but realistically, I mean, it was a tough draw. It was always going to be a pretty tough draw. They've made quite a lot of money. They've also lost a lot of money in fines, and it looks like they've got a partial stadium closure to come in the next European tie. So, for Pyros,
with the finances.
No, so they got fined. I think it's 42,000 euros for Pyros. Again,
it looked pretty though.
It did, and it went viral on social media. But I think
ever so good. That's good. Can you monetize that virality?
Yeah. But I think again, the start of each year, HJK's aim is win the title and get into the group stage.
Yeah.
And they've done it. And so next year they'll be back in the Champions League qualifiers back in July, and yeah, we'll start the cycle again.
Making their downward progress from the Champions League into the Conference League group stages.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Hey, that's the dream that the rest of us are all chasing. All right, I tell you what, Rich, I think that's a very tidy hour that we've managed to cram a lot into there, and it's going to take me a hell of a long time to put all the chapters into this episode. I hope, listener, that you've noticed that both in the podcast and on the YouTube video that there's now chapters. Hopefully this helps people when they're searching, looking for the content that we're making. And also if you want to share a certain section, if someone wants to share a link to the section where we blow a little bit of smoke up the backsides of SJK, then that would be very nice. Good for them to see what we're up to. And maybe don't share a link to what we said about HJK in Europe. All right, Rich, thanks a lot for being there tonight.
Hey.
We are now going to take a bit of a break from the podcast, have a bit of a rest, maybe do a bit of planning for next year. Possibly we'll do something between Christmas and New Year, but it'll be a bit of an impromptu kind of get together if we can find a time where at least 3 of us are available, and that's not always easy nowadays, it seems. So, listener, thanks for joining us, and until the next episode of the Finnish Football Show, goodbye.
You've been listening to the Finnish Football Show. You can find us online at finishfootballshow.com. Remember to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow the Finnish Football Show page and group on Facebook and also on Instagram. See the links in the episode description. You can also connect with the 5 hosts on Twitter, at Explore Finland, at FC Suomi, at Escape to Suomi, at Kekkimuleri, and at Mano99. Links to the Finnish Football Show merch stores are also in the episode description.